power. That is the end of that statement sent yesterday to newsrooms by envoys assigned by 11 of them, led by U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Robert Godec. And of course, that last bit of the statement being what has irked the opposition the most, led by their leader, NASA leader, Raila Odinga. Let's now speak to international relations analyst or expert, David Kikaya. He joins us live by way of phone. Thank you very much, Mr. Kikaya, for joining us here on KTN News Desk. This latest statement and the reaction that followed from the opposition, what do you think, how do you think it places us as Kenya in terms of the image out there?
It doesn't place us in any positive position, but I think the bigger question we need to be asking ourselves is why is the Kenya government, especially the opposition, finding itself at loggerheads with the foreign envoys on a matter that the two of them should be speaking the same language, i.e. Upholding democratic institutions. I concur with the envoys when they raise issues of unconstitutional measures on both part of the government and also on the opposition in violation, again, of the same constitution that the current government and even the opposition are supposed to uphold. There is a credibility gap that, unfortunately, the envoys suffer in the eyes of Kenyans, because all along we have felt that they were like the last resort, especially for us citizens who may feel disenfranchised, to set the records right. But the rain began beating them when they sanctified the elections of August 8th, which were obviously subsequently nullified. And then also there was a credibility gap on addressing the issues of reforms in IEBC when even people within, including the chairman, Chebukati, and remember our commissioner who fled the country, yes, saying that she could not think that IEBC was going to deliver a free and fair election. So that's where the rain really began beating our envoys.
Well,
but
you
otherwise,
say, yes,
we had really relied on them as neutral arbiters.
Yes, you say that they should be acting as neutral arbiters, of course, especially with the fact that Kenya is going through a very complicated time since last year with the elections. But currently, the envoys are being seen to be taking sides. Going forward, what does this mean for them, even in the country?
It means that they really have to work at that credibility gap. You know, speaking as a profession in terms of peace and conflict, you can never be seen to be an arbiter if you are already appearing as if you are taking sides. That is one point. But I think, again, the bigger question there is we must understand where these envoys are coming them. It is incumbent on them to be seen to be playing a prominent role in terms of driving the current embassy. But having said that, on the part of the opposition, I think also the opposition are finding themselves in a quandary, because now what they were calling for is really, they don't really have as much control of it as is now, because the people themselves, let's put it this way, it has had its own image, its own body, its own force, to the point where the people who are at the helm of the opposition now are finding themselves in a very difficult position to convince their followers differently. What I would suggest myself is to perhaps try and assure us, the voters, that there was nothing untoward about the elections. Can we open the so-called server? Are we using it as a scapegoat to drive Kenya to the brink of anarchy, or does that server on which the taxpayers' money was spent hiding something that would have given us the truth? I think this is a question that we need to confront and address.
Currently, they are pushing for Raila Odinga to accept the legitimacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy. Definitely, this has been met by a lot of backlash. But in terms of pushing for this particular agenda, how far can the envoys go?
In the first place, it is not even Raila to talk about accepting the legitimacy of the current government. Unfortunately, there are many people who feel there is a legitimacy. So even if Raila and the principals were to say yes, they accept the legitimacy, they'll be find themselves on their own. They'll be completely alone. I think what we need to do now is to try and see if we can address the intrinsic issues that make this continuing electioneering atmosphere going on. I would like to advance that the only condition we ought to go by on both sides is that we come to the table without any condition, if I'm making any sense.
But of course, we are seeing two sides that have conditions, two sides that continue to push further their goalposts, and those who are coming in as perceived arbiters are not doing really what they are expected to be doing. Where does that leave us as a country, even in terms of the relationship we will have with other nations?
It leaves us in a very awkward position, because what people are asking now is that why was it possible for the international community to arrive at a consensus in Ivory Coast, where even Kenya itself played a prominent role, and then it is opposite here in Kenya. That is addressing the real issue at stake. So it doesn't, Akisa, put us in a very good state at all. It only leaves us isolated, and the gains that Kenya had made as a democratic country in an oasis that was turbulent, that has become turbulent in this region, is slowly but surely being eroded, I'm afraid.
In their statement, the envoys have also castigated the government for curtailing very basic freedoms of the media, freedom of expression, freedom for the civil society. They've also talked about the deportation of Miguna. But Kenyans seem to be more irked by what was said about Raila Odinga accepting the legitimacy of this government. Do you think we've also gotten to a point where we are looking at everything politically? Because we're not hearing much noise about what they said about the government.
Yeah, it is a pedestrian argument to argue that a person like Miguna can be denied their Kenyan citizenship. We may differ with Miguna, and I think there are many people who do, but I think the way of going about it is not just on. Secondly, the issue of muzzling the press was completely uncalled for. What that did to most Kenyans was to remind them of the dark years of guess who. But more poignantly is the fact that the cameras, you remember, towards the 26th October elections, were kept from places like Kisumu and the slum areas, where we are aware that the police forces committed quite a lot of atrocities. And these have been documented, so I'm not afraid to say so. So when you switch off the TVs, and especially, people begin wondering what is it that the government wants to hide, that they are going to do that is unconstitutional, that is unlawful. So there is a meeting of points, of minds, by people who really are keen to start dialogue to, as I said, come on the table without any conditions. The only condition is without any condition.
Finally, do you think the foreign envoys are interfering too much with Kenya's affairs?
No, I must confess, I don't think that they are really interfering. First and foremost, they are doing their job, and their job is to protect the interests of their own countries. And we should not ignore this. We should not be blind to that fact. That is prime. And you can dine and wine with the devil so long as the devil is delivering. And we've seen that in the international scene so often. So what they are doing a job that is concomitant with the requirements of their calling. What we need to ourselves now look at, can we come down from the pedestal of brinkmanship, of people saying that unless you do this, we are not doing this, to realize that we are dealing with a colossal problem in this country that is going to bring us not just to the brink, but perhaps into the arena of anarchy, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much for speaking to us here on KTN News Desk. That's the voice of David Kikai, an international relations expert, speaking to us about the relationship currently that Kenya has with foreign envoys and the opposition as well. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll be giving you updates on what's happening across our borders. And of course, Robinson Kenya will be